Welcome to the Daily Pour podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Lopez, and this is the place where we dive into all the big and small moments, from challenges to celebrations and every single thing in between. Each week, we will have heartfelt conversations, grow in faith, and pour out a daily dose of encouragement that's just for you, my friend. You are always welcome here, so get ready to laugh, learn, and leave inspired. We're pouring out the good stuff right here, right now. Let's go. What's up, you guys? I'm sitting here with my friend Mia Reed, who is a wife, a mom, an adoption and foster care special needs advocate, and she's going to hang out with us today, share a lot of her insight, wisdom, encouragement with you, and just share her story. So Mia, tell our audience, who is Mia Reed?
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. First and foremost, I am a believer. I'm a Christian. I love the Lord so much. Married 27 years this year to my husband, Jeff. We have two beautiful girls that we adopted through LA County foster care, who are now 18, have an adult now, and 15. It's a little background of who I am, but love so many things in life, like music is a huge passion of both my husband and I's. I play drums and violin, and we have a huge, beautiful studio now at my house. A
music studio?
Yeah. My husband plays many instruments. He taught me actually how to play the drums. I started playing violin when I was really young, and then when we got married, he taught me how to play drums. So I played drums for church. So I do drums at worship and love to cook. I come from a really good food family. I have one side's Italian, one side's Spanish, and from like New Mexico area. So I grew up with a lot of great foods. I love to cook and travel.
Does Jeff cook with you? Is that a thing you guys do together?
He barbecues. He learned when we lived on the Central Coast, he learned how to do Santa Maria grilling. Mm-hmm. So we have like the wood grill, and he does great grilling, and we have a smoker. So he'll help me with that. And he actually bakes more than I do.
Okay.
Mostly around the holidays, but he is one of two boys in his family, and his grandmother was this amazing baker. And so he thought these recipes are going to be lost. So he spent time with her learning how to like bake homemade pies and desserts. So yeah, I don't like to bake, but he likes to bake.
Yeah. So hobbies include music, cooking, all of those things. Do you have anything that you like to do on your own that you're like, I'm going to go do this and have?
Yes, I love art, watercoloring, travel journaling. Junk journals is a new thing I've gotten into. It's kind of fun. It's like think journaling, but taking all kinds of scraps and papers or like things you collect and just recording your thoughts, feelings. You could put art in there. You can almost like scrapbooking.
Okay.
So it's kind of a therapeutic thing that I like to do. I love to go on walks. I walk a lot. So yeah.
That's awesome. You had mentioned before in your introduction that you love the Lord, that you're a Christian. Can you tell us your faith journey? How did you come to faith?
Sure. It started young. I was 3. Mm-hmm. I was very young. I pulled my mom aside and said I wanted to ask Jesus into my heart. I wanted to know how to do that. And so she sat down and she prayed with me. And during my prayer, I also asked the Lord to visit me. I wanted to see him. So that night when I went to sleep, I actually had a vision of the Lord. My room was opened up. I saw the sky, and I saw 3 angels standing by my door. And Jesus was there in my room and talked to me and showed me the scars on his back and his from the thorns and on his wrists, and told me he loved me. And I even saw, I think the Lord gave me this because he wanted me to confirm to my parents that it was real, but I didn't know I had a sister in heaven. And I saw my sister, her name's Rebecca, and my parents were pregnant with her before they were pregnant with me. And I didn't know that. I was only 3. Mm-hmm. And so she said hi to me, and she told me my grandparents in heaven, my great-grandparents in heaven were raising her. And so in that moment, my brother was in the room. I'm the oldest, so I was 3 and he was 1, and he leaned over, told me he loved me, kissed me on the cheek, and then kissed my brother on the forehead. And then it was gone. And in the morning I woke up and I was in my little footy pajamas. They're like, oh, good morning, Mia. How are you? And I'm like, good. Jesus, I saw Jesus last night. And they're like, what? And so I started telling them, I said, I saw my sister. I have a sister named Rebecca. And my mom just started crying. And she goes, oh my gosh, like I never told you that. How do you know that? And I said, she has red hair and she's beautiful and she's in heaven and grandma and grandpa Chicanti are raising her. And she just started crying because she named her when she miscarried. The Lord said, this is a little girl, name her. And she named her Rebecca. And so I would have not known that except for the Lord, or, if she had told me later. So that's part of my testimony. I don't often share it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, people may not believe it, but that's part of what God gave me. And I think, thinking back, I think the Lord, I've always had an assurance of salvation, not because of that, but I think that was a grounding thing for me, especially through some of the hardships in life. And I never wavered in my faith.
Because that was so real to you at such a young age.
Real to me at such a young age. And I always knew God was with me.
Yeah.
So
I think it's interesting with all of us on our faith journey. I was talking to a friend that said, she's like, it's so weird. I have like dreams and I feel like God speaks to me through dreams. And you see that a lot in Africa and different cultures, that is a way that they experience, like that God speaks to their hearts. And, I think we have to kind of be open to however God chooses to speak to us is how he speaks to us. And thanks for sharing that. And I think that's so important too, that when we're young and rooted in faith so young, it's really powerful.
Yeah. Childlike faith.
Yep. Thanks for sharing that. Talk to us about adoption and foster care and what stirred your heart towards that.
God put that desire in my heart at a very young age. I probably was like 4 years old when I had a discussion with my mom that I wanted babies from all over the world, but I didn't know the word adoption. I didn't know what that meant. And so my mom said, Mia, that's adoption. And, I just kind of like ran off and didn't think about it again. But I believe that God placed that there because knowing that many years later, I would be on that journey. And part of that journey for my husband and I was, many years of infertility that we walked through. And even my desire was, I had such a mama, I had to be a mom. Like it was just the most important thing. And I think in the grief of infertility, it was so painful. And at the point that my husband was open to adoption, was when I really felt like, okay, I don't have to physically give birth, but I just want to be a mom more than anything. And it was a journey for him and he had to get there. It took about 7 years where I think for him, he just didn't want to have too many kids. He was afraid we'd get pregnant and then adopt and then get pregnant. And for me, I was like, no, like I really believe God's calling us down this road. And the next steps for us were infertility treatment that we just didn't feel was right for us. And so at that point, he had heard a sermon about our spiritual lineage in Christ. And for him, he was really holding on to like carrying down the family name and having maybe a son that they would have the initials that are in his family. And God said, no, the most important thing here is a spiritual lineage that we give our kids and being adopted. As we know, as Christians, we're adopted in, we're grafted in, just like our kids, our adopted kids that come in, they're exposed to the gospel, right? There's no guarantee that they'll be saved, but they're exposed to the gospel. And he felt that conviction. And at that point he said, okay, like let's step into this. So that's.
And how many years were you married? You said 7 or?
I think we were about 7 years married when we began the process. And we knew really quickly that we wanted to go through foster care because we had sat through a class. And at that time in LA County, there were 40,000 children in the system. And we just felt like, how can we turn away from the kids in our own city, in our own county, when there's so many children needing a home? And so that's what launched us into adopting through the county.
Can you share with listeners what that looked like in your journey to foster care and your girls?
Yeah, it was a long journey. It's like with any adoption, you go through the home studies and the classes and that kind of thing. We had initially, our first placement was a little boy who came from a really difficult situation, a drug home, and he had been neglected. He was about 13 months at the time, very malnourished. We had him for 2 months, and the paternal grandfather, ended up getting custody, but it just ripped my heart out because the minute those babies came to me, they were mine. And so that was really hard. And I just cried and cried and cried. And I think on the tails of infertility, and now I had this beautiful, precious little boy who I had to say goodbye to. So painful. And then 4 months after he left, we got the call for my oldest daughter. And she had been in a foster home for a few weeks. She was in the NICU for a while. And this older woman in Santa Monica who just took in babies had her. And we met her, and I was like, wow, she's so beautiful. And, of course, like instantly fell in love with her. And it was a week later we brought her home. Her story, her case was pretty simple for LA County. It was almost exactly a year later that we adopted her. But because her birth parents didn't fight or do the things they had to do, so they closed her case pretty quickly. Next little baby we got was a young mom that had actually been raped, and she gave her up and hid the pregnancy from her family, and she was in college. Within a month, changed her mind, which we were really happy about, and took the baby, but still had my ugly cry the night before, but knew she wasn't mine, that God had just placed her with us for a short time. And she was actually a really healthy baby. And then the fourth child that was placed with us is my youngest. And that was probably one of the hardest things I've been through, was her foster journey. And so we got the call. She was born 4 days old in the NICU, 4 pounds, full term, so many different medical things that they were concerned about. She's honestly a miracle, but not going into too much of her history, it was a 2.5-year battle with the courts and the most liberal children's judge in LA County, who I do agree with reunification when it's safe and appropriate, but in her case, it really wasn't, and it was known from the beginning, but kept giving the birth parents chance after chance, even with drug use and different things that were going on. And so it caused quite a bit of trauma for her in those years of going back and forth between us and her birth family. But there's also a redemptive side of that too. But God used that to grow our faith in so many ways. And it felt like the process of walking with her was literally at times felt like keeping her alive, like keeping this little girl alive, but also keeping her safe and caring for her, knowing that at any moment she could be taken, but God had given us a call to care for her and love her the way he was calling us, like the way he would love her. And so she was adopted. She was 2 years and 8 months old, and we were able to adopt her. And
That is a journey. That's a long journey. What would you say are misconceptions that maybe you had about adoption, or we're going to talk about special needs as well, or special needs parenting that changed once you were living it?
I think, I don't know, misconceptions about adoption. I mean, I think there are some, if I think back to the misconceptions, is that if you bring this child into a stable, loving home, they're not gonna have major issues. Like their trauma is gonna be resolved. They're gonna be okay. They're not gonna have mental health issues or special needs, or because you're gonna provide all the things. And that's definitely hasn't been the case. There's been a lot of hard and continues to be hard in our journey. I think with special needs parenting in particular, I don't think I really honestly knew the depths of what that would look like. I often call it like peeling back an onion, the layers of an onion. Like each day is like a new layer to uncover, a new thing we have to try, or a new therapy to do. Understanding getting more testing to figure out where our daughter was at intellectually, developmentally. It's just every day is different. And I think that's the misconceptions of just not knowing what that's going to look like and how hard that parenting a child with special needs or parenting that comes from trauma is not typical. And I'm so grateful that I have friends like you and other friends that have bio kids because they bio and adopted because they literally can speak to that. Like it is different. I don't have bio kids, so I only know what I know. But when I see kids that come from, a family, their healthy attachment and, healthy systems and all the things, it's so different. The parenting journey is so incredibly different. I wouldn't change it, but it is different.
Yeah. I love your description of the onions and the layers because I've experienced that too. And actually, you and I are on similar journeys raising at least one of our children. And I was at my hairstylist is also your hairstylist. Yes. And she started talking to me and said, you have to meet my friend Mia. You guys are going to click and you're going to know, like, you are living each other's lives. And so I just feel so bonded to you, like sitting here like, oh, but it is something, the misconceptions. And I think you don't know what you're getting into. It's beautiful. It's what God's called you to, but it's really hard. And there's so many layers to it and it's lonely and you can feel isolated. And so when you find that community and you have like one friend or hopefully more than that or 2 or 5, like it means the biggest thing. I'm so happy our paths have crossed. What has surprised you the most, would you say, about parenting a child with special needs, both the challenges and the joys?
I think the most surprising thing, I really thought about this question, is the grief that comes. I wouldn't say it's constant. It's intermittent. It comes and goes. It comes often for me with milestones. You're on social media and you'll see your friend's child maybe starting to drive or getting asked to prom or doing the things that a typical child or teenager would do. You see them when they're in elementary school, a typical child maybe learning how to write and read at a typical pace, and your child isn't able to do those things yet. That was the thing I think that was the most surprising to me, and the grief doesn't stop. Yeah. My oldest is now 18, and there's so many things that in her mind she can do, but we know that most likely she won't be able to do. Yeah. And then having those conversations with her now that she's 18 of, honey, we love you so much and we see your passion and your drive and these goals, but yet, and her having that realization of her disability and that acceptance that we as her parents have to constantly walk alongside that. Yeah. Right. And I think yet we see how God, even in those moments of grief, how it just looks different. Maybe she can't drive, but she's learning independence and riding the bus. Maybe she doesn't get asked to prom, but she gets to go to this amazing special needs prom at, Bayside Church every year and has a date that's matched with her. That? Yes. No. It's called the Enchanted Prom, and she's done it 2 years in a row. Sports was always really hard for her. She loves like baseball and all the basketball, but with a typical team, it's so challenging. But she gets to be part of Special Olympics and compete and be on a team, and she thrives, and she just feels so empowered being there. So I think those are the areas where there's grief and there's joy, but there's also the heaviness and the grief of holding their story and their grief that they carry every day of not having, like my oldest doesn't know her birth parents, or she longs to know her birth mom, and yet she's not a safe person. She's not a healthy person. There's grief there, right? And they're just in their adoption story. And so holding that for them and seeing their grief and walking alongside that is humbling, challenging, but it's also sacred, like a sacred space to sit there with my kids in that and to know God is still sovereign over that story.
Yeah. So it's really beautiful. And I think that when you're sharing this and you're talking about the prom and Special Olympics, the reason that your girl is getting to experience all these things is because, like I said in the introduction, you are an advocate. You are an advocate. And so I want you to share about that, how you have stepped into that, how you have learned to advocate for your child within everything, medical, school, community settings. What has that looked like for you? Because you're the girl I go to. Every question I have, I'm like, Mia, what about this?
I think the advocacy happens because it has to happen. Mm-hmm. You'll come against a closed door or something in school or a point in their journey where you are like, no, but we need this to happen, right? Mm-hmm. Or I need answers, or I need help. And so much of the advocacy comes from just a desperate cry and a desperate place of, what do I do next with this? Yeah. And I'm grateful that, again, it's like an onion. It's layer by layer, where in the early days, especially with my oldest, I knew there was delay, mm-hmm. but I didn't know what that looked like, right? Mm-hmm. I knew she was a late talker and a late walker. And I knew I've been around enough kids to know that she wasn't on the typical path, right? Mm-hmm. She's not really talking. She has some words and mumbles at age 2. So you start speech therapy, right? Mm-hmm. You start that first thing, and then you get her in like a special needs preschool. Okay, great. And then you do the next thing, right? And so I think I'm somebody who doesn't take no for an answer. And if I need to find the right thing, I will find it, and I will ask questions, and I will reach out to somebody, or I'll ask a friend, do you know anybody that knows about this? Or do you know anybody that knows about that? And so I'm pretty feisty in that area. Like, I don't give up. Yeah. And I think for the advocacy part is really, sometimes it's just being that voice for my kids when they don't have a voice, or they don't know how to communicate their needs. And especially in the younger years, and as they've gotten older, they've learned to advocate for themselves. Mm-hmm. And they do a really great job. Both my girls do. And so it's hard though, because, my husband and I were raised in our bio families with our bio parents. We didn't come from a place of adoption or foster care or have the traumas my girls have. And my youngest in particular, who went through so much in her early years, it was around age 7 or 8 when her trauma really hit. Her birth father committed suicide. And it was at that point, she was just so angry and she was raging. And then the anxiety for her was so crippling, and she's not even 8 years old yet. And I think it was at that point, I'm like, what do I do? How do I help her? Mm-hmm. She's so young. And that's when you seek out medical help. You seek out therapies. You seek out the church. You just seek out anybody who can just, help your child. So I think that's part of that.
And also, I just want to encourage any parents that are fostering or have done foster adopt. I do feel like I've had situations where same kind of thing, up against a wall with this child needs a resource. Like, there's some struggles that we're having. Can you help? Like, can you point us in the right direction? Just want to make sure that she's getting all the support that she needs. And they don't give you anything. They don't really direct you or point you to the right person or anything like that. So what you're doing and just meeting you, and I know I want to talk to you about this also soon, but that you have a group that you meet with on a monthly basis, and you are support to foster parents, for adoptive parents, and pointing people to the right resources. But it is trying, and you have to be an advocate. You have to pursue it. No one's going to come to you and be like, oh, here you go. Here's some steps. I noticed you might be struggling here. It is very lonely, and you have to find help. You can't just sit in it. So I do want to speak about that. Talk to us about Growing Hope, what you're doing there on a monthly, how it's impacting families in our surrounding communities.
Yeah. So almost 9 years ago, well, let me back up a little bit. When we moved to Northern California, mm-hmm. my kids at that point were 7 and almost 5. And my oldest, who has special needs, things were really amping up for her. Part of her diagnosis, her overall arching diagnosis is fetal alcohol, but she has intellectual disability and sensory sensory issues, emotional regulation issues. So a lot of behaviors and meltdowns and things. So I had no community. I knew nobody when we moved up here. I left everybody behind. We were from Southern California. We were on the Central Coast for 2 years, built community really fast when we were there, and then moved here. And it was very isolating and lonely. And so the church we were going to at the time met a friend who had adopted boys, and she said, I go to this support group in Roseville. Why don't you come with me? And it was just great because I would sit there, and some of the families, their kids were like, it almost was like therapeutic for me because I'm like, okay, my kids aren't that bad, which I know sounds terrible.
It does help. It helps.
But it was just that moment to say, okay, like,
you're not alone.
It could be worse.
Yeah.
And some of the kids were, the parents were going through some really gnarly things, and they had older kids too. So I would go, and it was through that group called Heart to Heart that has been established for over 20 years now, that my husband and I joined a class called TBRI. My friend Joanne Gell, she's one of the founders of that group, got trained at Texas University by Karen Purvis and her team at the time, and taught the 16-week course. It was a huge commitment. We couldn't bring our kids. People at my church totally stepped up and helped us watch our kids once a week so we could attend this class called Trust-Based Relational Intervention. And it's really about attachment parenting, therapeutic parenting. And so we did this class, and it was really transformative for us and for me especially. And so from there, had a heart to start something in our city, in our town, in our county. I live in Dorado County, and it was not just me, but 2 others that had the same heart, and God just brought us together. At the time, my youngest was almost 8. She's going through her traumatic stuff with her birth dad, her anxiety. She literally could not leave my side, slept in my room every night. It was really hard, couldn't go to school. But yet God called me, and I showed up to that meeting saying, I'm here. I don't know what I can do or what I have, but I'm here, and
You're showing up.
I'm showing up. And that's literally what we did. And at that point, I was in like a high crisis point with my child. And so we showed up. So we started Growing Hope, almost 9 years ago. And our mission statement says to bring hope and healing to foster and adoptive families while providing professionally moderated training, including education and access to resources in a mutually supportive community. And we have the privilege of having a licensed marriage and family therapist that runs our group and provides training because we wanted to give our parents something to take home. So she does about a 45-minute training. If she's not there, we have a guest speaker, a professional that comes in. We meet once a month at Foothills Church in Cameron Park. And we have childcare, and our childcare they're all trauma informed. And it's usually, we are about one-on-one care with our kids. And the church actually provides a meal for our families so that they don't have to think about cooking that night.
Amazing.
And our kids are fed because food's a big deal for our kids that have trauma, that they feel secure, and they have healthy snacks. We're very big on like providing healthy, high protein snacks. It's high structure childcare. It's not just willy-nilly, like running around crazy. Like it's extremely high structure. We have sensory friendly spaces. And so it's been amazing. We have families. We have foster families, foster adopt families. We have families that are kinship. So kinship families that have adopted like grandkids or aunts and uncles that have adopted their nieces and nephews. We have, international. I don't know if I said that, but so we have the gamut of families that come, that have kids that are adopted or are currently fostering.
I love that so much. I wanted to ask you about unique pressures that foster adopt families often face that maybe others might not understand, and how us as friends and churches and communities, how we can support these foster and adoptive families, because it is something, I mean, Brian and I, we have 5 children, three by birth, 2 by adoption, and it is a whole different world walking into that adoption. And there's a honeymoon phase. I was thinking back, and just in preparation for you being here, thinking back about how early placement, we received this call. We get these beautiful kids. I'm so excited. I was actually a blonde at the time. And then as soon as I found out we were going to have Hispanic babies, I called my hairstylist. I was like, you have to dye my hair black. I need to look like my babies. And she said, what? We just got your hair perfectly blonde. And I said, I don't care. It needs to be black. I need to be their mom. And so they come and it is just magical. Have you seen that show? Oh gosh, what's the name of that movie where they adopt a sibling set of three? Family, what's Instant Family?
Instant
That's what
Family,
it is. Yeah.
yes.
So
Yes.
Instant Family.
It's a pretty good. I think the director is an adoptive dad. He did foster care,
Oh.
so it has it's pretty accurate.
It makes so much sense.
Yes.
So for viewers that have not, or listeners that haven't seen it, they are in classes with fellow foster parents and those that are adopting, and they're like, how's it going? Because they just got placement of 3 siblings that they're adopting, and they're like, it's amazing. It's so great. Like, it's just, I think it's what it's supposed to be. And everyone starts laughing at them. They're like, welcome to the honeymoon phase. So I remember that, like, just thinking, we have killed it. We are awesome parents. Like, look at us go. And then a couple of weeks go by and I think, what have we done? Like, it just becomes reality sits in. So talk to us about that, what you're seeing, what you've experienced, what like the unexpected things that people don't really understand and how we can support these families.
Yeah, this was my loaded question from you because I thought,
Okay.
man, I can really talk a long time about this.
It's important.
It's an important question. I'm so glad you asked it because our kids, especially, I think, if you don't understand adoption, if you don't understand what that looks like, or foster care, kids that come from hard places, right? You might assume, especially with mine, I'm bringing home my first baby at 6 weeks old, and my second one's 10 days old. They're new, they're babies. What do they have that's so hard? And yet both of them developed in a mother's womb. They were both of their moms were homeless, no prenatal care. Both, now that we know there was domestic violence. There's, when you think about a stressful pregnancy, that cortisol being raised, that's impacting that fetus, that baby in the womb. And then on top of it, you have birth mothers that are using drugs. My oldest, we know now, she used alcohol, which I don't know if people know this. Alcohol is more damaging than drugs. Alcohol actually causes brain damage, literally like the worst. I mean, it's not a great analogy, but they do call it like almost like a Swiss cheese brain because there's holes in the brain from fetal alcohol when a birth mother drinks. And that's why they say there's no healthy, safe amount to drink. So you bring these children home, and already many of them has spent time in the NICU. And even if you had a healthy pregnancy and your baby has medical needs and is in the NICU, that's even traumatic. Bright lights, people interrupting that child all the time, right? Pricking, prodding, and it's so challenging. And so you've got that layer. And on top of it, adoption itself, you're taking a child away from a birth mother, their voice, their smells, and placing them in the arms of their adoptive parent who is completely a foreign person. Yes, we love them, we hold them, we nurture, but that attachment is already coming broken. And so I think that's the part that's not understood, and the depths of what that does in that child's life that they carry. Can God heal? Absolutely. We serve a big God, but there's definitely been damage. There's definitely often sensory issues. Babies that I remember, I was like the baby whisperer. Give me your baby in church. Like, I will get that baby to sleep. I was around children my whole life. The oldest of 4. We had neighbors with little kids. I babysat a lot. I could put any baby to sleep, but I couldn't put my baby to sleep. I remember being in church and like not being able to sit through the service because we were in this like small church, and I was in the back little hallway and just like rocking. She was just screaming. I couldn't soothe her because her little system was so wrought with, just that coming off of the drugs, coming off of the alcohol, right? And I just couldn't soothe her. And so, same with my youngest, she was the worst sleeper, and she would only sleep in the car. And she'd sleep at night. She'd finally fall asleep, but she's just never been a great sleeper. But it was just, it's just so different, right? Yeah. And so I think that is part of it. And I think what people also don't understand is that our kids often have behaviors that look really big. And so as we're parenting our kids, we have to parent differently. A typical kid understands consequences, understands if you do A, then B is going to happen. Yep. My oldest doesn't understand that, does not connect the dots. Yep. And so we have to come first from an attachment-based parenting perspective. We have to build that groundwork of making them feel safe, that felt safety, making them feel that love and security, and then coming at it that way. Yeah. And so I think so many of our kids, and I think especially there's judgments that happen in the Christian church, which is sad because there's not understanding. Mm-hmm. Some of our kids have to go to residential. Some of our kids falsely accuse their parents in their CPS claims. Many of our families that we serve have walked through that. Mm-hmm. Kids that are doing really dangerous things, or a danger to themselves or a danger to their family. And so where the cops have to be called, and somebody in the church might think, well, if they were raised in my home, it would be different, right?
So that is so funny because just in all honesty, prior to adoption, as a bio mom, at the store, kids throwing tantrums, and I would see that and I would have judgment in my heart, never out loud, but come on, girl, like, you got this, mama, it's parenting, like, it's your parenting. That's why your kid is acting that way. And I think the Lord has a really awesome way of bringing humility to us. And so, I experienced the complete opposite, where I was in the store probably being completely judged. But also the beauty of that is because of walking through those very humble situations now and forever after those experiences of the early days, especially parenting, I will see a mom in distress and a child losing their ever-loving mind in the mall. This happened years ago. This kid was losing their mind, and the mom, or it was actually a grandma, was just there and seemed helpless. And I was like, my past judgment would be like, you got to get it together and get that little kid out of here or whatever. And instead I said, I'm so sorry that you're having this kind of day. What's your favorite coffee? I'm getting you a Starbucks right now. And then my girls were with us. We prayed over her, and just, I think it gives you different eyes to see people, but that's something I would have probably cast judgment and not thought anything of it. But since I've walked through what I've walked through, I'm like, you need a coffee and a hug and probably someone to pray over you. But it's true. You don't know what you don't know until you're walking in it.
Yeah.
It's really
I've been through some pretty epic tantrums. There are moments, I had this one, I'll just share this quick story. We're in Costco and it was in the food court, and my daughter is having the most epic tantrum, but she was the kind of kid that if I came and like grabbed her, it would escalate to like a 10 beyond, right? Like it would just be. And so I kind of walked away and I just let her have her moment. And people were looking at me like I was absolutely insane, but I knew if I approached her, it would even get worse. And so I had to just let her calm down. Yeah. And I get it.
Yeah. So to every listener out there that's roaming the aisles at Costco or the mall, and you see a child losing their mind and a mom that just is beside herself, just know there's probably a real big story that you have no idea. Yeah. Share some love. Oh, we've been through it, girl. Mm-hmm. Yep. For encouragement for our listeners, what would you say to parents who maybe feel called? It's a calling, and we want people to walk in this because it is such a gift. It's such a calling from the Lord. But what would you say to parents who feel called to adopt or foster, but are scared of the unknown?
Well, I think, back to just kind of your previous question too, is first, if you're that person in church that knows a family, ask questions, get to know the family. Yeah. Don't shy away from the hard, because it's really hard. And those parents are going through a lot, and they're feeling really isolated and lonely. pray for them.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, encouragement, or at least what would I say? I would say be on your face, pray a lot, go to classes, get as educated as you can about what that looked like, trauma, what that looks like to parent a child that comes from a hard place. Ask questions, go to a support group, say, can I join? I'm thinking about this. We had a few seekers that were, we've had a few come through our support group that said, can we just sit in here? We're getting ready to step into adoption and we want to know, we want to learn from you guys. We're like, are you sure? Are we going to scare you away? Like, seriously, like we're pretty honest in here. And they're like, no. But that's good, right? Like, it's not my heart isn't to scare people away, but I want people to really think about it, because it can turn your life upside down. And especially if you're married, that you have to know that not only you're called, but you're on the same page as your spouse, because you're going to be journeying together through this in the trenches, holding each other up, moments when your spouse is so weak, can't do it anymore, and you're going to take that torch and vice versa. So
I'm so glad you touched on that, because I do feel like that's one of the biggest things ever. And for our journey to foster care, I knew I was very small, very young. My mom and dad took in foster kids, and they were always the biggest deal, so loved, so celebrated. And then I have a brother that's adopted. I have nieces and nephews that are adopted. I just always knew that it was a thing that I wanted to do. And Brian was not there for a lot of the years that I was. And then, but it was when we came together and we knew that God was calling us at the same time in the same season. And so just for anyone that is listening that feels that, please be on the same page. Don't push your agenda or your wants and desires. God will line it up at the right time, but you have to be 100% on the same page, or it will be a nightmare.
Yeah, for sure.
It's no joke. What encouragement would you give, Mia, to parents in the thick of parenting a special needs child? I'll stop there. A special needs child.
I think my encouragement would be that if they were my friend, I would say, I see you. Yeah. I'm here. You're not alone. You've got people on your side. And even when it gets hard and messy, I'll be right there. And I think, for them, the best way possible to find community, but I say that where I've really had to fight for community, and it's taken me a long time. And I think part of that is when you have a child with special needs, people don't really want to include you. It's difficult because sometimes their issues are so big and messy, and people don't understand how to love that child where they're at. And so you have to really fight for that community, fight for those friendships, even if it's like you said, one or two, and that's really what it's been off and on. I mean, I think my community now has grown. We've lived in this area about 10 years, and, building community at church, and then through the support group and the different special needs activities and things I'm involved with. I have my feet in two arenas, the foster care, adoption, world, and then the special needs world, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of crossover. And so I would just say it's really easy to feel isolated, but to find your tribe, but to not shy away from really seeking that out and being intentional. Yeah. And just also, I would encourage people to stay close to the Lord in their journey, because it can really rock you. And sometimes there's just moments where the grief is so big that we don't know even how to handle it, but encourage people to also find help when needed. Yeah. For them to seek out resources for themselves, because self-care that's a big, word right now. But when I say self-care, it's like really, it's like a full emotional, spiritual, all the things, right?
It's survival care.
It's survival, yes, because we are honestly living sometimes day by day. Yeah. And it's, I go in and out of seeing a therapist seeing one right now, and it's just super helpful. And she's an adoptive parent and is a Christian. And so seeking that professional that can really be a sounding board and hear your heart and hear what you're going through, and just unpacking that a little bit. And it's a safe place where sometimes even some of the things I need to share, I need a neutral party, right?
Yeah.
Like I just need somebody just like, let's talk about this because this is really hard. And so, yeah, that would be my encouragement.
Yeah. One of the things that you said that you love to do is you love to walk, and I love to walk also. And I remember years back in the early years of adoption, having a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, 5, 7, and 9, that was the ages of all of our kids. But I would go on the walking trail and walk for miles just because it was containment. There were kids that were contained, and I had this moment where my youngest was screaming and crying in tantrums. I would give her a snack and she would chuck it into the woods. And then my 3-year-old son is just the sweetest ever, like so happy eating every snack. And I was like, Lord, do you hate me? Like, why is this happening? And I'm trying everything and trying to get outside and all the things. And then fast forward years later, I'm on the same trail. I take them, they're on their bikes and my youngest turns around, she's riding. She's so happy. And she's like, Mom, look at me go. And I was like, Lord, you love me. Like we made it. But I think just the importance of, like you're saying, if you need to see someone, to go and talk with someone, but also like take care of yourself, get outside, get some vitamin D, get your heart rate up. Even if a kid's in a double jogger, like they're not escaping, like just strap them in and go for it. And there were times I blasted worship music and other times I blasted Lady Gaga. And I was like, I'm not listening to the crying. I'm just going to hit this trail. But have you found a lot of like therapy, just being out and walking? Has that been so good for your soul?
Yeah, I think it's any time I can just take a step away, and especially in those really hard days where, I just need to go for a walk, and it is helpful, whatever that is for you, whether, I have friends that go to the gym or go for walks or whatever. For me, I just like being outside. I love, I'm the same. I put on music or I'll listen to a podcast. And I live in an area that has a lot of hills. So I push and I put I'm one of those middle-aged women now with the rucksack. Is that what they're called?
Do you have a vest?
The weighted vest?
Oh,
yes.
My gosh.
I'm like, I probably look really
You're
funny,
awesome.
but it's
you
really
look great.
It's
Stop.
so hard.
So I got one of those because I decided that when I get older, I could never have like Home Shopping Network because I'm suckered into all these things. But I saw the vest and I was like, I have to order one. And so I ordered one. I thought I could do I can't remember if it was 16 or 18. That didn't seem like a lot to me.
It's
and
a
then
lot.
I got it in the mail and put it on and I said, oh my gosh, I'm sending this back because instantly my back hurt. So Good job, girl, hitting the hills and those. So encouragement to special needs, but can you also, for parents that may be struggling on their foster care and adoption journey, what would you say to them?
I think, the same thing. I think that sometimes our parents that are fostering, or especially those that have adopted, there's this view of, they're my kids. I have to figure this out on my own.
Yeah.
There's actually so many resources out there. I would say there are a lot of resources, but even more so, especially if you foster adopted, that a lot of times I find families don't even know about.
No idea.
They have no idea. And so, we did 18 months, a few years back of what's called wraparound care, and that was paid for by the county. And we literally had people in our home, these coaches that were like coaching our kids and social workers, like walking alongside us. And they gave us housekeeping the entire 18 months. They helped with groceries. There was just so much love and support, just like literally wrapping around our family. At moments it felt invasive because you have people in your home at the, all the time. But at the end of the day, it was really supportive of what we needed at that time. And so I think, like my oldest qualifies for regional center. A lot of parents don't know that their kids may qualify, and that may be another level of support as they become adults, right? Or IHSS or other resources that could provide funding or money to help that caregiver. I'm not able to work. I had to give up my career as a teacher, but because of some of the funding sources, I've been able to stay home and really be right there with my kids every step of the way, which they've really needed me. My youngest needed me to go to school with her every day for 6 months, literally walk like in her classroom just to get her through the school day because her anxiety was so bad. So there's just a lot out there. There's classes, there's, support groups. I would say find something. And a support group is a really good place to start because a lot of those parents know, have walked through some things, know the resources, know what's in our community, right? Because every community is different where you live, right? Like you're down here in Amador County, I'm in El Dorado County. We have different resources, but some may cross over. But yeah, just asking questions. So that would be my encouragement, not to shy away from asking questions, from figuring things out, asking your adoptive friends, do you have a good therapist? Like, cause not all therapists are going to be the best suited, right? For our kids. Do you have a good psychiatrist? What, I need to look into this. Where do I go? So yeah, I would say just figure it out, find the resources. Don't shy away from that.
Yeah. And you said it so well before also, because when you're in the thick of it, it's my child. I'm going to figure it out. We're all hands are on deck here. We're helping out. We're, IEPs, all the things. And I think I lived in that land for a really long, long time. And you talked to me about this before too, that when you have children that aren't meeting milestones, for a lot of years, you just think, okay, they're going to catch up eventually. And then there comes a time where they kind of age out and they're not catching up at all with their peers. And that's when you really see this great divide. And so I think all of us need to step back and kind of evaluate. And you're not meant to do this alone. Find a support group. Go look up Mia Reed. I'm going to have her share how you can get a hold of her and be in touch with a monthly support group. But don't do this alone. If you are a foster or adoptive mom, dad, parents, there's a community waiting to help you and to be a support to you.
Yes.
Mia, thank you so much for being here. You're such a great mom. You're such a great advocate and just really in it in community to share with people how to get support. And can you tell us once again when you meet and how people can find you? What's your Instagram? Like, how can people connect with you? What's the best way?
I used to be part of what I do for a living is social media marketing for Sacramento County Office of Ed for adult education. And I got hacked so bad about 4 years ago. I lost all of my accounts, so I had to recreate. So I'm a little bit, private on my Instagram. Okay. However, I can share with you the website where people can access Growing Hope through our website. It's a little long, so I'll just have you put that in the notes. Okay. But we do meet once a month, second Monday of every month at Foothills Church in Cameron Park from 6 to 8. If you have children, they would need to be signed up for childcare because, like I said, it's highly structured and we make sure we have one-on-one supports. But anybody is welcome that is on foster adopt journey, or if you're seeking or thinking about it, we would love for you to come as well. And that's basically that. I have a email as well that I can give listeners and we can put in the notes. And
perfect.
Yeah. And I can share my Instagram and I'll maybe accept a few friends.
Sounds good.
Maybe someday I'll have a public platform.
Thank you so much for being here and for sharing. Thanks so much for joining the Daily Pour podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss what's next. And don't forget, the Daily Pour is on YouTube. We'll be showing up on video soon, so head over, hit that subscribe button, and be the first to see when we go live with new content. If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to leave us a review. It really helps others discover the podcast. And if you know someone who'd be encouraged by this conversation, go ahead and share the episode with a friend. Thanks for listening. See you next time, my friend.